The bill before us will certainly do some good. It will authorize some badly needed funding for better fences and better security along our borders, and that should help stem some of the tide of illegal immigration in this country.
Secure our borders with technology, personnel, physical barriers if necessary in some places.
Folks, I voted for a fence. I voted, unlike most Democrats, some of you won't like it, I voted for 700-mile fence.
Between 2005 and 2009, a vast amount of progress has been made on our borders and ports of entry. The progress includes construction of a 630-mile border fence, or 630 miles of border fence.
I would build a great wall.
Today, a nation ringed by walls would only imprison itself. The world is too small for us to simply be able to build a wall.
We will not build a wall.
We can't wall ourselves off with problems that are not bound by borders. No wall can be built.
President Trump, you will not get your wall.
National emergency.
Howdy, y'all. Welcome back to the Wright Brothers once again. We appreciate you taking this time once again to come back and join us. First and foremost, shout out to all of our subscribers in the tribe. You are our community. We couldn't do this without all of y'all's wonderful, wonderful support. If this is your first time watching, please feel free to press that subscribe button. Membership in our tribe is completely free. And each and every one of you who presses that button and joins our community helps us reinforce the message: identity politics is dead. Now, for those of you who've been with us for a little while, you may have remembered a few weeks ago we released a video entitled Shutdown Showdown, where we talked about the government shutdown and President Trump's efforts to try to secure funds to secure our southern border. We want to talk about this time, though, it was really more about the national emergency declaration that President Trump just issued and really why he issued it, some of the information about the wall, and whether or not the wall is actually necessary to make sure that our borders are secure and that illegal immigration is curbed. And for more on that, I'm going to turn the floor over to Eddie now.
Well, thank you. And yeah, obviously the efforts to secure funding through Congress stalled, and instead of enduring yet another government shutdown, President Trump opted to declare a national emergency and to obtain funds to start construction on the border wall. Actually, it's a little bit of a misnomer. The wall is already being constructed in certain portions. He's just looking for a larger financing option. What I want to talk about here is not so much the wall itself. It's the manner in which the president is getting the funds to do this. And here's where I may break with some of our listener base here, or some of our viewer base. I actually don't think that declaring a national emergency was the smartest play. I think it is an effective play, though, and those are two completely different things. The reason I don't think it's the smartest play is because I think it can paint some conservatives and some people on the right as a little bit disingenuous. None of us liked it very much when President Obama's mantra was, I have a phone and I have a pen, implying, of course, that he can ram through whatever he wants via executive order or whatever other tools are at his disposal. So it can be a little bit of a disingenuous stance to have opposed what President Obama did, but support what President Trump did. Now, I realize that they did it for differing topics. That President Obama didn't do it for border security. Trump is doing it. You may agree with one or the other. I'm not here to discuss the merits of either. I'm talking about the method, and I think it's a method that is kind of one of those things where if your guy is in office, then it's great, and if your guy isn't in office, then it's the worst thing in the world. But I think if you're going to have a problem with one, you have to have a problem with another just to be ideologically consistent. Now, as far as whether it's an effective strategy, absolutely, because what it's done is it's taken away, it's basically kneecapped the Democrats in Congress who were purely blocking the wall for political reasons. And the political reason is this: they know that the greatest political promise of Trump's campaign in 2016, or one of the greatest, was the promise to build the wall. To be able to obstruct that to the point where construction on it wouldn't have been funded by Congress and could be stymied further, would only have served to bolster the chances of the Democratic challenger in 2020 being able to point to Donald Trump's failure in that department and be able to say, see, he couldn't come through on his biggest campaign promise. How can you trust anything he says in 2020? So it was a little bit of being stuck between a rock and a hard place for President Trump. I totally get that. I just believe that the Rubicon has been crossed a little bit when he's declared a national emergency. And now, I will say, as far as national emergencies go, this one is actually cogent, and that's something else that there's so many facets to this. It's been really fun to watch, actually, from a political standpoint, just observing the strategies at play. Usually national emergencies are declared for matters offshore. They're usually declared for matters of being able to freeze monetary funds or what have you. There's been many national emergencies. There are national emergencies going on right now that most people don't even know about, rarely hear about, rarely care about. This is one of the first and most high-profile ones in a long, long time. So of course it's getting more press, but there you can make a case one way or the other. Well, if it was actually an emergency, why did Trump wait to go through Congress to secure the funds? I think he was trying to extend the olive branch via a negotiation, which was commendable, because I don't think the Democrats were negotiating in good faith the whole time. And it's been a problem, because having a border wall and funding for some sort of border security, border barriers, has been a bipartisan issue basically up until Trump was elected. We can go through a host of video footage that shows exactly that. It's not something new, but the fact that it was opposed so strongly and on such relatively feeble grounds. We're talking about Nancy Pelosi saying walls are immoral. We're talking about it being too expensive, when if you look at the vast expanse of the national budget, it's a drop in the bucket, really. When you see those grounds for opposition, and then you see Trump's action to try to circumvent the obvious political obstruction, or obstruction for political purposes, I think it sends a message. It sends two messages, one good, one bad. The good message is that Trump absolutely was serious about the border wall, and he was serious about getting something done. And that honestly is refreshing from politicians and from presidents. We've seen so many in the past that pay mere lip service on the campaign trail, and then when they actually get in office and face a little bit of resistance, they kind of walk it back, find a way to back down, or try to placate the other side of the aisle a little bit too much, and nobody ends up being pleased at the end of the day. So it does send a good message that Trump is serious about border security, which is commendable. I think it sets a little bit of a bad precedent. Because, well, it's not really a bad precedent. It's a continuation of maybe a little bit of an overreach of the executive branch. We saw it under Obama. We didn't like it. We're seeing it a little bit under Trump. Of course, the left isn't going to like it, but I think we on the right have to be a little bit careful not to get too wrapped up into, well, this is justified because we enjoy the outcome. So, it's a bittersweet outcome, and of course there's going to be legal action, and Damani, you'll give us more on that, I'm sure, but I think it's a little bit of a mixed bag at the end of the day.
Yeah, no, I hear your point, and to your point on it being at least precarious precedent, I do agree with you. And no one liked it when President Obama overreached and did things like Obamacare or what have you. But what we have to also realize is that this is an issue that we've been talking about for a very long time. And before we talk about, all the histrionics on the left side of the aisle with regards to, clutching their pearls and saying President Trump is being radamanthine with his approach to this problem, we also have to do is take a look back through history. So in the year 2000, actually, and this data comes from the Customs and Border Protection Agency. So back in 2000, a stretch of wall was built in Tucson, Arizona. And in that sector where the wall was built, illegal immigrant apprehensions were dropped by 90%. Furthermore, in Yuma, Arizona, a few years later in 2005, another structural border wall was enacted and constructed, I should say. And when that was constructed, illegal apprehensions decreased by 95% over the next 9 years. This is from 2005 to 2014. And these are actually during the end of George W. Bush's administration and throughout much of President Obama's administration. So to come off now and say that walls are ineffective, they don't work, that's actually fundamentally and factually untrue. But we see all these people now saying, oh, the wall is just going to be, you know, just an immoral thing. And as you saw in the intro bit that we talked about earlier, you saw that throughout history, different politicians on both sides of the aisle have said different things about there needing to be a serious conversation and serious reforms needed to be enacted to make sure that our border security was enacted and was properly enforced. Back in 2006, George W. Bush signed the Secure Fencing Act. And with that, actually 700 miles of fencing was built over the next several years throughout much of Obama's time in office. So for people to say that now President Trump suggesting a wall is the most horrific, terrible, you know, cruel thing that could be done, that's actually not true either. But you would never know that because the media almost preys and politicians almost prey on this notion that the average American suffers from some form of amnesia of some sort. And then that allows these politicians to portray themselves as Nancy Pelosi and Chuck Schumer and Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez and many others have postured now, and they're saying that, oh, this is not what we believe, when we know they've showed themselves to be scrofulous just over these last 2 years. So if you look at this picture we put up on the screen behind us right now, what you'll see though is that the majority of the wall that's been built already, those 700 miles we talked about, is in parts of California, a little bit of New Mexico, some of Arizona or what have you. And there's actually a large stretch of the US border, which is close to Texas, actually, Texas-Mexico border, that is not properly secured. And that's where people are possibly able to come through. And then what they can do is actually hamper the well-meaning good Americans who do want to get jobs or do want to better their station in life. And people will say, oh, well, they're doing jobs Americans don't want or what have you. Another common rebuttal to that is the fact that illegal immigrants do enforce a burden on the average American taxpayer. Now, with us acknowledging this fact, we can also see that sometimes people will say, oh, well, legal immigrants, you know, they cost $100 billion to the U.S., but they also pay taxes too. That point is at best misleading because estimates have said that, okay, so even if illegal immigrants do pay taxes, that the net cost overall, after you factor in the fact they pay taxes compared to how much of a burden they put on the American taxpayer, that number still is about $54 billion. So when President Trump says the wall will quickly pay for itself, this is true. Now, the last thing I want to talk about is that people are saying, oh, well, the wall is going to be ineffective and, you know, it's not going to work or what have you. You said earlier, there are instances where we've seen the wall demonstrably work in areas where it's already been enforced. But we also have to take into account is the fact that when you construct a wall, you at least have some sort of barrier. Now, people will talk all day about, oh, well, illegal immigrants can get over the wall, tunnel through it, but you have to realize that takes time. People, Democrats mainly, will talk about we need to have more technology and ways to find illegal immigrants or what have you. But the thing is, the technology that we do need along our southern border and the wall that we do need are not mutually exclusive. They will both work in tandem to make illegal crossings that much more difficult. And it's important for us to remember that this all is supposed to work together to enforce the laws we already have on the books and make sure that coming to America is not the most easy task in the world. And it shouldn't be, because being here is a privilege. It is not a right. A lot of people will say no one is illegal, no one is what have you. No, you know, everyone comes from their own country or whatever, but there are laws on the books to make sure that people come to America legally. And those that do, at least we want you to just, you know, assimilate and show that you're grateful that you're here. Don't come up to America illegally and then wave your flag from Honduras around in my face like, haha, joke's on you, because I'm not going to be too happy with that. But we want to know, what are your thoughts on the national emergency President Trump just announced? What are your thoughts on the proposal for the border wall? What are your thoughts on the fact that a lot of it was already built under the Obama years and the late George W. Bush years? We want to hear from you. We always say on this channel, the only way to make free thought great again is by being willing to have the conversation. All we ask is that you contribute to that conversation. So please leave us a comment. Let us know what you think. We always love engaging with our base, and we love getting to know y'all even better as the days and weeks go on. I'd be remiss if I didn't give a shout out to my buddies Let's Be Frank, the YouTube channel, and also the YouTube channel to the Two Classy Gentlemen podcast. Check them out for even more great content from the right side of the aisle. And if you do like what you've heard in this video, please smash that like button. Every like does help, and we truly want to make sure that we push the message forward to as many people as we can. Identity politics is dead. But we appreciate you for taking this time. As again, thanks for coming back and joining us, and there will be more info coming soon, more videos coming soon. We're always looking for ways to make things more exciting for you, but without further ado, thanks and gig 'em.
Hey, if you're not going to wave the American flag, at least wave the Texas flag. Thanks and gig 'em.
first revolution is when you change your mind about how you look at things and see that there might be another way to look at it that you have not been shown. The revolution will not be televised, There'll be no rerun, brothers and sisters. The revolution